Okay, I'm live. Do you see me yet?
Not yet.
Good morning and welcome to my live podcast, Fight CPS with Bob Pace. And I warmly welcome you because you're with an entity that maybe has caused you a lot of stress and discomfort and broken up your family. They broke up my family. They destroyed my family. They destroyed me. They took my home. They ruined my credit. I've been fighting for 15 years. It's been an awful mess. I'm not very fond of CPS. Now, CPS stands for the Child Protection System. That's what I call the branch of social services that that protects and neglects our children from neglect and abuse. From neglect and abuse. Okay, that is what I call the Child Protection System. Now, um, welcome, Jacqueline Bean. I understand you're from Texas, so I want to give you a warm welcome to Jacqueline Bean, and you can listen to my room. Yay! I finally think I fixed the podcast. I got my person in there. Okay, now, um, what you need to do is turn your sound down a little bit because you're getting feedback on my show. That's okay, and I'll be right with you, Jacqueline. What I need to do is that I need to tell my listeners that you can um, how they interact with this podcast. Now, one of the first things that you can do is just by being in the room, and being in the room will work. You can do all kinds of things. You do emojis. You can give me smiley faces. You can give me um, uh, hearts. You can give me thumbs up, and also you can send me stars. I love to have lots of stars. Further, you can, if you want to follow my podcast, check below. I love to have followers. And then lastly, if you want to be notified when I come live, hit the notification button so you never miss my podcast. Now, this podcast is dedicated to all you listeners out there that are going through problems with the child protection system. I want to help you. I'm not an attorney, but I'm a loving father and a family man. I've had two families. Um, the first family only lasted 10 years. I had one child. Sadly, that family disappeared. It was really hard for me. I did not want it to end. But fortunate, I met someone else, and now I've had a relationship now for 32 years and five more children. I have a total of six children. One by my first marriage, who's now in her 30s, is a school teacher, and I've not seen her since the age of 3, which is a heartening thing on my heart. The second marriage has been great. We have, my wife had two children by instance in her life. Both of them were unwanted. One she gave up for adoption, and that came back to look us up at age 20. And so he's been a part of this. He's in his 40s now. The other child, I met her. She kept that child and met her child, who's a girl, at age 5. So I have 3 girls and 3 boys. My wife and I of 32 years have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Unfortunately, my life was interrupted by CPS when I was in 2010, when I was the age of 60 and a half years old. And it was a terrible experience. And I'll talk to you about that in a moment here, because I want to finish my interacting, how they interact with this podcast. Now, let's say you want to type in a comment. You want to type in a comment. To type in a comment, all you need to do is text me your comment or a question about your case in CPS. I'm here to answer your questions and also love to see your comments about your experiences with CPS and foster care and how your children were taken and so forth. When you do a comment, please show me your first name. I don't need to see your last name. A first name would be great. Also, the city or county that you live in or the incident happened. The city or county that the incident happened in. And then you follow with the state. Now, the reason why I have country here is because I also receive text comments and questions about CPS cases in other countries. 14 countries to be exact. So all you people from around the world that are listening, that have internet, I'd love to hear from you about your CPS issues and how I can help you. All you need to do is put in your city and your country. And I've had about 14 countries. I've had Bangladesh, New Delhi, India. I've had a country in the Middle East that was in Arabic, so I don't know speak Arabic. I've had several countries from the continent of Africa. I've had Liberia in the north on the coast on the west side. Then I've had Rwanda at Central East Africa near Lake Victoria. And then I've had Mozambique, which is above South Africa, across from Madagascar, the island of Madagascar. And then I've had South Africa, and I've had the western province of South Africa on the west coast. So it has been interesting to hear from that country. That country has a lot of issues with their children. Then I've heard from England, Scotland, Wales, and England really has a lot of domestic problems with families and how to take care of families and everything else. So it was interesting to hear from them. They're part of the United Kingdom. Then I've had England, Scotland, and Wales. I've already said that. I'm sorry. Then I've had Denmark and Sweden. Sorry, I got a little slipped up there. Denmark and Sweden. And you would think that Denmark and Sweden are a very open society, wouldn't have any problem with children, but they've texted in too. Then on top of that, we go across the pond to North America, and I've had the provinces of Canada, and I've had all the 50 states and Washington, D.C. text in or call in. And I've had some interesting people. I've had 3 social workers call in, and I've had several Indian tribes, people with their American Native Indians, and 1 Canadian, the First Nation Indians. So in Canada, they call their Indians First Nation, and in the United States, we call them the Native American Indians. And then down in Mexico, I've had someone from Mexico City actually call me looking for his daughters in Louisiana. And then we go down to South America, and I've had Grenada, who's on the west coast, and they're east of Venezuela and north of Brazil. Then across the Pacific to the land down under, I've had Australia. And I had several states there. I've had the Gold Coast on the west coast of Australia. Then on the south coast of Australia, I've had Melbourne in the state of Victoria. And so it's been interesting there too. So I welcome everybody around the world that has a CPS question or a comment. Just be respectful to everybody in the room. Lastly, please be complete with your CPS case. When you text in, it'd be helpful if you tell me ahead of time what your family makeup is. Is it husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, lovers, or a partnership? Is it are both parents are the biological parents of the kids? And if you're a single parent, how's the arrangement with the other spouse? Uh, Things like that really help and stuff. Then also about your children, the ages and the sexes, and then what allegation took them out of the took them away from you, or what allegation were you alleged that you did, more than neglect or abuse. And then how were the children taken? Did you give them to them? Was there a warrant to take the children? Was there domestic violence going on? They had to take the children. Just tell me how they were taken from you, if they were taken. And then where are you at on your case right now? Are you at the beginning or the middle or the end? Are you at dependency court? That helps with all the information to make us going back and forth, less talking like playing ping pong ball. I don't mind playing ping pong ball, but I love ping pong ball. Now, hi, Faye. I can see you. It worked. You got in there. This morning, I went to my Facebook page and made sure that it was public. And I had someone test it out earlier named Jacqueline Bean from Texas. And she made it work too. I'm so glad that it works now, Faye. So if you go to my Facebook page and you see my live show, then you go through them, you'll be on there. So maybe that's how it works now. That's the new way it works. So I'm so thrilled. And I want to give many thanks to my show producer who helped me by contacting you and making sure that she can make your needs. I want to thank Grace. She's a really hard worker there. So I feel a lot better now that I've gotten several people into my room, and it looks like it's picking up again. Now, the thing we're talking about is texting and comments, and so I've already talked about that. A third way to interact with this podcast is to be our guest. And as I mentioned, to be our guest, I have a show producer. I've already mentioned her name is Grace, but you can email her at grace@vincentwdavis.com. Now, all you have to do is email her. She will be very helpful. You just pick one of my 14 shows. Now, I'm broadcasting on YouTube using the StreamYard application. And you found me on Facebook, Fighting CPS. And to be a guest, you have to tell her what show you want to be on. Now, I'm on Monday through Sunday, twice a day. I'm on at 10 o'clock in the morning, Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour, and 7 o'clock at night, Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour. Now, I also have on certain days different operations. On Sunday, I go to church at 10:30, so my show at 10 o'clock doesn't work out. So I do my show at 8 o'clock. I do my show from 8 to 9. Gives enough time to go to church. And so that's every Sunday. Also, this upcoming Friday is Friday Night Lights. It's high school football. And I'll be at a football game Friday night at 7 o'clock. So my show will be on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 to 5. So those are the only two deviations. So when you write Grace your email, put in I want to be a Bob's Wednesday evening show or a Bob's Sunday morning show or my Bob's Monday evening show. You pick out nighttime or daytime, and you pick out one of the days of the week. And then you email it to her. She in turn will email you back, give you the link to StreamYard. Don't lose the link. If you happen to come off, use that link again. It's good for the show. So that's how you're going to get on the show. She'll also explain to you some rules of what to do and so forth, like no eating during the show, no smoking during the show. Also, we do not use the names of children or judges or social workers during the show. So, and she'll help you out about doing your lighting, just your lighting, your sound and stuff. You got to try to use your computer if you have one. If not, a phone's okay. But make sure that my show that you're watching is turned down so it doesn't echo there. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for the ones that have been my guests, because I've really enjoyed having, two, three, or four. I've had up to four. Now I can take up to 9 guests. That's a total of 10 people. So all of you are welcome, and I really hope that you do take up the opportunity to be my guest. I look forward to it. Now, the last thing you can interact with is my phone number. You can call in. Now, my phone number is shown now. That phone number will stay up. That is my office phone number, and it's 626 698 0990. And sit up closer here to the screen. And so call that number will ring my phone, and then I use Vonage as the internet application on my phone. It's called Vonage, and I can only do one phone call at a time on it. Also, um, when you if you call in during before the show hours or after show hours, I can't answer the call. I'm only available during my show hours to talk. So that's the time you need to call in. And again, that may be the easiest way for you to talk about your cases or make comments. And again, I'm open to everybody. I'm open up to parents with children, grandparents, questions about their grandchildren. I'm open up to police, sheriffs, about your experience with CPS. I'm open up to social workers and foster care moms and dads about your experience with the child protection system. And I have had several social workers. One of them was a, uh, a educated psychiatrist, had a college degree in clinical psychology, and also went for additional training with her state. She was from Maryland, and she knew all about the CPS system, and she's one of the few that does a good job with the CPS system. I hate to tell you that a majority of you, or at least the people I speaking to, including my case, there's been negative impact uh, with CPS. CPS. There's been advocates. I don't know if you all knew who Nancy Schaefer is, but she's a Georgia senator that was a proactive for families, abortions, and also she wanted to restructure the CPS. She wanted to uh, abolish it and recreate it. Now, CPS says they've been around a long time. They divided their history into 3 parts. I don't know why they do it, because I don't think CPS has been all that long as what it does now. But they talk about the first period from 1600 to 1875. And then from 1875 to 1962 is the second period. And the third period is 1962. And the first act that I came across was 1978, which was called ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act. And that's where CPS are supposed to turn over Native American children to the Indian tribe so they can help out the family with family reunification. Because for a long time, for over 150 years, CPS has been automatically forgetting about family reunification and making the children become adopted into foster care. So that's why the Act of 1975 took place. But it's very interesting on that. So I have lots of things I can talk about and lots of directions I can go. So I always ask you, my listeners, and I have a regular in here. Her name is Faye Manley, and she is from Richmond, Kentucky. She is a very wonderful lady with a big heart that cares about families and cares about y'all. She does a lot of talking to you people that have been in my room. She helps me out immensely. She's come up with brilliant ideas, and she unfortunately experienced foster care herself as a child. She was in and out of foster care 5 times, including life as a teenager. The only problem was is that she was molested and abused. She was injured walking barefoot on rocks. She was sexually trafficked. She was raped. She sacrificed her body for other children. She is one of those rare people that you meet in your life that is very, very special. And she also grew up, got her high school education all on her own, and then got a college degree in nursing. So she knows all about nursing. And so she has a college degree. So she's very intelligent. She writes really well. She's a very articulate writer, and I love the way she's bounced some stories off me, and I really admire her about that. But I've been very thankful for her help on matters. Now, she is currently taking care of her son, a special needs child. He's in his 20s, and she's trying to get custody because he needs the special needs. She has a daughter, and she was blessed with a daughter, but the child protection system in Kentucky was so bad they made her choose between her son or her daughter. It wasn't fair. She says, how can I be a fit parent for my son and not a fit parent for my daughter? Because the child protection system is very corrupt in Kentucky. It ranks at the top of all the 50 states. The police are very corrupt. I don't know where else to stop. Last week, they had a judge killed in his chamber by a sheriff that was upset with the judge messing with his younger daughter who's under 18. And there's a lot of turmoil in Kentucky. The cabinet is what they call their CPS. The cabinet is going through changes. The ombudsperson is new. She's written to the ombudsperson. She's had her case after 13 years reopened, and she's trying to find out what happened to her daughter. She knows her daughter was taken in foster care. She doesn't want to upset the relationship she has with her foster mom and dad, but she wants to say, hi, I'm your biological mother. I raised you for a couple years. Unfortunately, I had nothing to do about you taken from me, but I want you to know I love you and you're my daughter. So, Faye, I don't know what else to tell about you, but you are very awesome. You are very awesome. And I'm glad you figured out how to get it back into my podcast. For 2 days, I couldn't get Faye name to show up or comments to show up. So, I've talked about some of the people here. Um, I have lots of topics to talk about. I have a thing called Core's Digest. It's where we talk about a question answer of CPS questions and the answer that people give. And it's good for discussion. I also can talk about my rules. I have 5 rules, and one of them Faye came up with. And we can talk about those rules to help you. I can't guarantee you'll get your child. I can never guarantee that. Nobody can, even an attorney can't. But you're a lot better off than I was, because when I got involved in my case, I was already 60 and a half years old. And it was in 2010. And I had recently lost my job through no fault of my own. Um, there's no reason, but the state of California that I had all my work with was going bankrupt. And they had to use my awarded contracts, $53 million worth of them, to keep the state of California afloat. So a lot of people don't know out there that Bob Pace saved California. California didn't end up like Detroit, going bankrupt. And how they did it is they used the money from my public works contracts that are awarded to me, but they wrote me IOUs. And it was a miserable experience trying to get credit to get those jobs started. The banks were definitely not very friendly and not very helpful, because they had gone through what was called predator loans. The lending industry had given away loans to people that didn't qualify, and also they bumped up their income and changed their documentation so they would qualify. So we had all these predatory loans. That's another thing I discovered. I had a predatory loan. I couldn't understand how I could afford my home. My phone that I bought was close to $1 million. And I couldn't understand how I would qualify for that. I had a good job when I qualified, but they doubled my salary. They doubled my salary. And that's how I qualified. I did not know it because he also gave me a credit line. So between the credit line and my first mortgage, I owed over $1 million. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And of course, the home went up in values. It's worth a couple million. But the sad part is I had to sell my home, one that I worked 45 years for, and that I had finally got a home, but I lost it. Not only I lost my home, my credit was ruined. My credit was ruined. My score dropped from the high 800s to now to the 600s. I'm trying to get up to 700 so that maybe I can buy a car. But it's really sad. And that's all because of CPS. And you say, well, how can CPS be that bad? Well, Faye will tell you how bad they've been. I'm pretty sure other people listening would tell you how bad they've been. Um, you know, uh, how it happened with me, and since I'm talking a little bit about myself, I haven't talked about myself in a couple of days or in these shows. You can hear me all the time on my podcast, but I was trying to find work. Well, I did not know that lay people use CPS to get revenge or to orchestrate something that they want, to alienate parents from their children, which is illegal. Alienation is illegal. And the child protection system uses it. CPS uses alienation. They also do legal trafficking, which is against the law. You're not supposed to traffic children or adults into trafficking to work as in the sex trade industry or to work as uh, laborers, slave laborers in other countries. And I should know that because I live in Surf City, USA, which is the number one area for children being trafficking. And it's because we have the port of Long Beach and the port of LA that are container shipping. And they put these children that are kidnapped in my neighborhood because it's a very well-to-do neighborhood. And I live at the beach. I'm broadcasting now about a mile from the ocean, and I'm outside, so you do hear some noise out there. But uh, I had a terrible thing because I found out that my in-laws, my wife's mother, father, her three sisters or brothers were calling in every week for 5 years. You're not taking care of your children. You're not feeding them. You're not clothing. I lived in a very expensive home, and I certainly took care of my children and paid my utilities. And I showed the CPS made a habit of coming out to see me all the time. And if I knew what I knew now, they would never have, and I would have ended it, nipped it in the butt. But what happens is lay people out there use CPS to retaliate or get something they want. My in laws wanted our three children. We have very beautiful children, very well mannered, beautiful children, well educated. My son, my oldest son, not the oldest, but of the younger three, he was in private school at one of the best high schools around. He was 15 at the time when they finally took him. And my daughter was 12. She was in middle school, and she was going to one of the best middle schools. It was a public middle school, but the principal had a PhD. The teachers all had masters and stuff. It was a good school. She was in the STEM program. All my kids were in the science, technology, and engineering and math program. That's the classes they had to take because all of them wanted to be scientists or engineers, and they love sports. They all love sports. My daughter loved volleyball. My oldest son loves soccer, and he also likes golf. He played golf on the varsity team there at the high school. And my youngest son, of course, had two national championships in football. He played 4 years in football at that private school they later went to. But he was in elementary school. It was the state of the school, this elementary school. It had glass windows, and you could walk down the halls and see the teachers teach the class and see your students. It was a very open school for a public school. And again, the principal there had a PhD. Is well-to-do, and it was really uh, a good school. So my three children were very marketable to my in-laws. They wanted to adopt him because they said, "Oh, he lost a job. He's going to lose the home. He's going to be a failure. At 65, he's not going to go anywhere." They never liked me. My in-laws never liked me. They didn't come to my wedding 32 years ago. They didn't come to the wedding. Even the family member that lived out here in California couldn't make it. And we went to her wedding. We went to her other sister's wedding. It's really interesting. Sometimes people in families are hurting other families. And that's something that you may encounter. A lot of you may have had that, where family members have hurt each other and they use CPS to retaliate, which is wrong. They call in. And the problem with calling in CPS, that they'll take all calls like it's for real, like it's serious. You can cry wolf 100 times in CPS and they'll think you're guilty. It's the only system in the world where you are guilty before you're proven guilty. With anything else that's criminally wrong, you're innocent till you're proven guilty. But right away, they want to um, hold on. My battery is somehow low here. Let me seek on here. One moment, please. Okay. All right. Let me see. I'm going to excuse myself for a second because my battery went down. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Yeah, I found the technical problem. I tell you, I have a power supply and there's a little on and off button, and I press that off instead of on. Maybe when I was carrying it out of my bag and setting up, I forgot to check it. I try to be, uh, yes, I can still see you, Faye. Can you hear me okay, Faye? Am I coming through loud and clear? And do I look okay? I got my good tie on and my jacket. I'm trying to be really presentable here. So, we were talking about me in my case. It was a horrible case. It was a horrible case. We're also talking about the CPS system of how allegations are made and how easy it is for lay people to abuse it. You can have a neighbor that doesn't like your dog barking, and they'll call in and say, your children are outside, your baby is walking in your yard unattended. Well, the CPS comes out to investigate them, the social worker, and finds out the man doesn't have any children. That's how stupid these allegations can be. The allegations should um, um, should be in writing and they should be signed. Now, professional, the other group of persons that make allegations are your professional people. They go through training. When I got my teaching credential, I had to go through training about how to report child neglect and through physical abuse or neglect. It was a special class I took in my education. So all school teachers are required by law to report abuse or neglect. Also, law enforcement have to go through it too. I also am a former law enforcement. As an ocean lifeguard, I had to take police school in a lot of areas because I had to write tickets out on the beach and give people tickets and go to court. So I have a police background. I also have an EMT background. So I've trained medically, I can save lives with advanced life support. So I have a pretty good background. I might as well throw in there. I'm also was once an animal trainer. I used to train killer whales. So that tells you how diverse I can be. And so anyway, um, these people that are laymen use it and abuse it. Now, the people that are professionals, your doctors and nurses and all that, they have to, by law, report it. And they go through training. And I would say probably 90% of the time, they don't abuse the system. I think they report it and they find out later it was maybe an injury from playing soccer or football or someone got in a fight or something. But what CPS is doing lately is they automatically believe everything they hear from whoever it comes from, and they want to go investigate. And what they do is they come to your place on a fishing expedition. A fishing expedition. That's why you don't let them in your home. That's why you don't turn your children over to them. There's only certain ways they can come in your home or turn your children over your way. I did not know these things. You have to know your constitutional and civil rights. Look up the Fourth Amendment. Look up the Second Amendment. Look up all the amendments. Type in your constitutional rights. Type in your civil rights. Study them, learn them, because they will help you. You see, I did nothing. I was so naive. And that's because I believe and trusted our U.S. government, whether it's at the police level, at the social services level, at CPS, or at the federal government or the state. I thought everything was honesty there. I'd only worked for the federal government twice. I worked for the Department of the Army at Fort Myers as a pool manager of their military pools. And I also worked in the Crystal City for the United States Defense Department in the records. I was working for the government. So I had some clearance checking. So I worked for the government twice. Plus, my family background, I was raised in a Navy family. My dad was an admiral in the United States Navy, had many years, 33 years in the Navy. And he was a remarkable father. I mean, I just can't believe enough of him. I learned a lot about being in the Navy, and we traveled around. So anyway, I haven't seen anybody with any questions. Feel free to butt in and have me stop talking about my case. And I'd love to talk about your case or your questions. Or Faye, if there's something you would like me to talk about, I will. But right now I'm talking about how loosey-goosey the reporting process is. It is really terrible, this process. You know, professional people are more responsible, but lay people, I'd say 50% of the people that call in the lay people are not reporting correctly. And then your question is, how about the people that do have a case of neglect or abuse? There are thousands of cases every day across the world that go unreported. I know of a mother that decided to take a vacation, left her 14-month-old daughter in a bouncy chair, came back and found her daughter dead. She was left for 13 days, no food or water, no diaper change. It was horrible. If you can imagine someone dying, that is a hard way to go. And you ask them, where was CPS all this time? This thing about welfare checks. The police all the time do these welfare checks, but they abuse it. CPS has abused the system because they prey. And what I theorize, and maybe Nancy Schaefer, if she was alive today, would agree with me, that they prey on the people that are low income, that maybe don't have the smarts. And I had all the smarts. I had a college degree, and I was buffaloed, and I was fooled. So I don't know if that's necessary, but they prey on people, and they do not honor their constitutional or their civil rights. They disrespect them. And that is proven time and time. I think Faye will agree with me, or anybody else in this room will agree with me, that's what they do. They're very corrupt. They're not transparent. And yes, I've met 3 social workers. The second social worker was a third-party social worker where she was hired. She was from Indiana, and she worked also in Illinois. But she tells me how she knew that CPS was corrupt. It is corrupt. Nancy Schaefer said it right on the button that she wanted to abolish CPS and start all over. It's too corrupt to fix it right now. It is so corrupt. I mean, day out, day in, I hear the stories. All you do is you Google it, and you'll hear about people that are not protected, the people that are protected or overprotected. Their MO is that when they get you with the allegation, they're going to come out and take your child right away, whether in imminent danger or not. They're not supposed to take your child unless they're in imminent danger. But people don't know that. And they don't know the definition of imminent danger. My 3 children were taken from me when they were in school. They weren't in imminent danger. And in the house they lived in, they never were. What got my 3 children taken off was my lack of knowledge and the frustrations of social worker for 5 years trying to nail me with something. And so they wanted to come into my house. Unfortunately, I had a hiccup in my life. My dad had just died. My mom was dying, and I had all their belongings in my house because I didn't have money to put them in storage, and I was sorting them. I did this all in the living room. The living room was cluttered. It had boxes and furniture, but that's it. The formal dining room with 8 chairs and a beautiful table and all the china and stuff didn't have a speck in there. The kitchen with the center aisle and the stove, the refrigerator is fully stocked, clean, and able to make food. The breakfast dining area was open, and 4 people could sit at it very comfortably. The family room adjacent to it was big enough so they could watch TV and so forth. Then there was the study downstairs and the extra bedroom. the library, the computer room. That was all clean and so forth. Then upstairs was their the bedrooms. The parents' bedroom, which was a double door with a bedroom the size of my apartment. It had a walk-in closets, two of them. It had toilet closet and it had jacuzzi. I mean, it was a state of the art. Each of my child had a bedroom and a bathroom to use. They didn't have to, I mean, that was all upstairs was a living thing. So nothing was endangering the kids. It's my stupidity as I let them take my children because I didn't know better. I let them in my house because I didn't know better. See, when they come to investigate you, you don't want to let them in because they'll find something. They'll go through your underwear drawer, which I don't know what the fixation is about underwear, but everybody I talk to, that's the first thing they hit. Maybe they think people put drugs in there. I don't know. They're looking for drugs. And maybe that's why they do it there. So the my case was that I was cited with negligence because I had boxes and furniture that possibly could endanger the kids. Well, my kids were taller than the boxes, taller than the furniture. How would they? And the boxes are not going to go upstairs, or the furniture is not going to fly upstairs. It was their purpose to try to pin something on me. I mean, they had the police track me down. They had a detective find out, how I pick up my kids or stuff like that. And then he forced me to come home. I should have said, no, unless you arrest me, I'm not coming home. I don't have to. Do you have a warrant? See, these are rules that you need to know. And I have these really rules that I've learned that I wish I knew at the beginning because, they took my children. And did they put them in protection? No. They put them in a shelter, a foster care shelter next to the court for their convenience. And it was side by side with the juvenile prison and the dog shelter. It's in Orange. It's Orange County. But that shelter was terrible. It had cockroaches. My kids told me it was dirty. They couldn't sleep together. They didn't have their own beds. Had to sleep with other strange children. And it was overcrowded. And the food was terrible. Not only that, the play area was outside in the play yard of the juveniles, so they could talk to them on the fence. They could probably smuggle drugs or influence your children. That was the protection case of the Child Protection Service in Orange County. I'm saying that loud and clear because the director knows me. I've met with the director in his Taj Mahal place, the place that looks like out of the Wizard of Oz, the Green Emperor castle where it is. It looks like the Taj Mahal. He wasn't hurting for money. He was not hurting for money, and he was useless. In fact, all their manager stuff, the whole system is corrupt and useless because that's what they do. They try to break you down. They stretch it out. Not only that, they talk to the police detective to investigate and make up some false criminal accusations, only to drag out the case longer. They made up some false things. They charged me because I have 3 children, 3 counts of negligence. And that was a misdemeanor. And they didn't have to do that, but they did force the police to do that. And that was a criminal matter that, like a fool, I decided to negotiate because they had also, and this is the MO, by the way, they tack on sex charges. I didn't have any sex charges. No one, the CPS never charged me sex charges, but the police did. That's their ploy so that you will settle the case. So you stretch it for a year. I make a settlement, and then all of a sudden they say, well, we'll drop the charges against your wife, and we'll drop the sexual charges against you. All you have to do is agree that you have negligence. I said, I'm not going to agree to that. He says, well, okay, we'll word it this way that you possibly could because you had boxes stacked too high. So I said, that means we wouldn't have a jury trial, wouldn't have to go to court, wouldn't have to have my family. They said, okay, I'll do that. I did that because I want to get my children back because this has been going on for a year. So that was really sad because they'll try to do police charges with your CPS case, so it drags out. Why are they dragging these cases out? Why are they bringing your children into foster care? It's the money. It's the money thing. They want the money thing. They want the money. They want the money. They make money. Trillions of dollars they take. Trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars. As long as they got your kids, they get the money endlessly. The federal gives the money unreported to the state. The state gives the money to the county. Three of my children, $20,000 each per month, was given to the Orange County County. That doesn't cost them much to take a child. $60,000 is ridiculous. If you had 100 families and you had three children in each family, that is $6 million. $6 million. $6 million. And so it is really, that's why they do it. That's why they take it, and they're going to get you. They got me. They conned me, and I'm educated. The only thing I had working against me is I had some in-laws that were very bad. They should have been reported because my wife was brought up by torture. She had hot water on her, coffee. She was left alone at a concert when she was only 16. I could go on and on how abuses. If they had investigated my in-laws, they would have been all in CPS's hands. So I know that I had, unfortunately, all this corruptness going on, and all this thing was happening. Here I am saving the people of California by not doing my job. I mean, by giving my money for my job so I could not start with my contracts of repairing the highways in the state of California. Yeah, I'm the unsung hero. I don't think anybody's ever realized that the state of California never went bankrupt because they used Bob Pace's contracts of his $53 million worth of contract work. Anyway, enough about my case. The sad part about my case is after a year, I did get an attorney. That's going to lead up to my first rule. But during the my attorney was cross-examining a social worker who was a young girl, barely in her 20s, no high school or college education, had no training in CPS, and all she thought about was a Gucci purse, her eyelashes, her makeup, her clothing, her BMW car, that she was getting sanctions. She was getting stipends and she was getting bonuses for keeping her children. So that's all her interest. Well, she's on the stand because my wife's sister and her husband were trying to adopt her daughter. Her daughter was only 12 at the time. What's so sad about it is my attorney was good. He's excellent. He knew what he was doing. He had the reports in a folder in his briefcase. And when he asked the social worker, how good have the parents been? Have they had any domestic violence? And the social worker lied. She committed perjury on the stand. That right there is a legitimate lawsuit. She said they were great parents and there was no domestic violence. Well, you know what my attorney did, Vincent Davis? He opens up the first page and there's like 30 reports there of police reports investigating my wife's sister's husbands of physical domestic violence, not just domestic violence like arguing, but physical, where they hit each other. And my attorney asked, can you explain these domestic violence that reported on this date, on that day? She couldn't answer one question. She lowered her head, she cowed her head, she was embarrassed in front of all her co-workers, the social workers, the attorneys, the judge, everybody. She was embarrassed and she lost her. They could not adopt my child, our child. So my wife and I won that part, but we didn't know what the social worker would do. She told us parents that you're never going to see your daughter again. You know what she did? She did the unthinkable. She convinced our daughter, who was only 12, didn't know any better, to emancipate herself from her parents, meaning to divorce her mother and her father and her brothers and her grandparents and her aunts and uncles and cousins. Divorce them all. You're no longer a daughter of me and my wife. And that is a hard thing. Then she said to my daughter, you're going to change your name, completely change your name. Her middle name's gone, her last name, her first name. She had a whole new first name, middle name, and last name. And then she sealed her birth certificate so that it shows that we never were the parents. I guess you can do that when you're 12 years old You can seal your birth certificate and have a new birth certificate issued by the foster care family and she's being adopted. That's how corrupt the system is. She got a new social security card, a new birth certificate, a foster care parents. Guess what? And I'm not sure what year, but later on, she's 22 now, but before that, her foster care parents abused her and she left. And she's now living with my oldest daughter. But she's still hurt by all of this, and she still has not come back to her mom and dad yet. She's with her brothers. She sees her brothers, but that's about it. So I'm telling you how corrupt and how bad that social services is. They're the most corrupt agency that I've known, worse than the IRS. They lie. There's reports they lie all the time. They kill people. I know that Nancy Schaefer was murdered. Her and husband were murdered because she knew too much. And that's the thing that I've heard another person that was killed and murdered the same way who was an advocate. Anybody stands up for things, somehow people disappear. Why do you think they're trying to kill President Trump? 3 times I've heard. He's been shot twice and a bomb almost blew up in a car. I don't know if you heard about that one, but you know, they somehow our government is so afraid of him being the president. I don't know why people are afraid of him. I'm not trying to be a politician here, but the most experienced candidate you got for election of president that maybe could make settlement in this world and close our borders and make our economy get better is running for president. So anyway, that's how bad the government has become. Government isn't safe. Look at Hurricane Helena. It has wiped out many states. Where was the precautionary measures that should not have been devastated that much? Where was the government? Where was Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? Where is it? They can transport, if they can use helicopters and jet planes to fight wars in place, they can certainly helicopter containers. I'm talking about storage containers with water and things. They can overturn the cars. They can do so much construction equipment, the National Guard, their delay on all that stuff. What's wrong with our government? Anyway, that's what's happened with CPS. It's failed. And I like to end with my rule, number one, and that is you need to get an attorney. And the attorney that I suggest you get is probably the best that I know of. And he was my attorney. His name is Vincent W. Davis. And all morning long on the bottom of my screen has been a way of how to get that attorney. Now, that attorney is available for consultation for 30 minutes. And you can book this discounted Zoom consultation with Mr. Davis for 30 minutes. And I've got a fee set of $60. All you have to do is go to the website, https://candidly, CALENDLY.com/APPTS/VWD/Bob Pace, BOBPACE. And when you go there, use your credit card, book that consultation. It's well worth the $60. It will save your life. He has so many ideas. He'll help you navigate. Fighting CPS is like doing open heart surgery. But if you do it without a doctor, you're going to lose your heart. You're going to lose your case. And you're probably going to sit there and say, I have a court-appointed attorney. Or I hired an attorney. Well, if you get a court-appointed attorney, they're barely trained in criminal law. They're new. They won't fight for your case. They have a backlog of 30 clients, so they don't have time for your case. And they won't fight. They want the easiest way out. And so you're wasting your time with court appointed. Also, if you hire an attorney that maybe does criminal law but doesn't do dependency law, you're wasting your time there. They'll take you for your money. There's a lot of corrupt attorneys out there. You got to be careful with selecting attorneys. Now, I know Vincent's real deal because he got my 2 boys back. And so he is the real deal. He's gotten, hundreds of children back. He's fought numerous cases in CPS. He's been fighting CPS for 35 years. He's a trial attorney, and he's also done lawsuits, civil lawsuits. Both lawsuits have been in state and also in federal court. He's won millions of dollars. He's the real deal. And for 30 minutes, you can talk to them on Zoom consultation by going to https://candidly, CALENDLY.com/apps, APPT, um, uh, SVWD, /Bob Pace, BOBPACE. It's scrolling on the bottom of my screen. It's scrolling on the bottom of my screen. But, you know, fighting CPS is like Alice in Wonderland. You go in that rabbit hole in the garden and you meet the Chester cat. And what does the Chester cat do? Send you to room after room that you go nowhere. One room says off with your head. That's how CPS is. You'll go nowhere with them. They don't care about reunification. They think every child is in imminent danger, and they take your child and they make you go through hoops and loops and everything. There are so many mothers that have called in, and so many fathers have called in. I have a father in Alaska trying to get his kids back. His wife has died, and he sleeps in a tent in Alaska because he doesn't have money for a hotel, but he wants his children back. I have, I have some women that have been abused by their husbands and by the father of the children, and vice versa. I've had some women abuse the husbands too. So I'm telling you that it's uh, it's really rough out there, and you need that attorney. And CPS is not your friend. Be careful of them. Do what they ask. Be pleasant with them, but don't let them in your home. They got to be either your permission, imminent danger taking place, or they have a warrant. That's the only way they can get in your home. That's the only way they can get your child. If you give them your child, or the child's in imminent danger, or there's a warrant. And a warrant is nothing more than a court order with a wet signature signed by a judge on a regular workday. If it's signed on a holiday or a weekend, that's not a legitimate court order because they don't do um, hearings on holidays or weekends. This also has to be embossed by the clerk. The clerk will use a hand stamp that raises the signature so no one can forge it. You don't want to look at computer copies or PDF files or anything that can touch it up. I'm sorry, with AI, it's getting worse and worse now. With this artificial intelligence, they can make things look for real. I mean, they're starting to do that with people. They're making real people look real. And you see it in the movies. But you got to be careful. There's a lot of rules that if I had more time I want to talk about, but I want you to look at my other podcasts. I want you to look at my other podcasts and check them out and see how they go. Um, because I give all the rules. There's 5 rules I give. And then I also talk about my case. I talk about CPS, how corrupt they are. I talk about the pink ladies that wore T-shirts that said they're professional child kidnappers, and on the back they said, "Do you know where your children are?" And they paraded around. They paraded around, and that was terrible. That was terrible. That was terrible. Okay, I want to thank Faye for able to come back to my room. I know it's early in the day for you in Richmond, Kentucky. I know you've been experiencing some bad weather and some bad times. I'm hoping that things will get better for you. I pray for you, Faye. I want you to find out about your daughter. I want you to be able to get guardianship of your son. And I want you to find a new home that's safe and sound. Faye is really struggling right now. She is, really, really struggling, but she's a good person. And I want to thank you, Faye. Also, thank you, Jacqueline Bean, for coming to my room from Texas. I know you didn't say much, but that was your first time, so I hope you come back, Jacqueline Bean. And then all the emojis that I got. Thank you for the thumbs up and the hearts and the smiley faces and also the stars. Um, and I will see you tonight at uh, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's tonight, Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Keep fighting your case. Don't give up. Don't give up. And I'm on 14 times a week, so you can find me. So take care and God bless you and have a great day.